I got a list here of the 20 most dangerous drugs.
I know I shouldn't do that, but man, it's going to taste so good.
You are listening to EMS with your hosts, Erik Axene and Matt Ball.
All right, so we're going to talk about addiction today.
Yeah, that's a big word.
Yeah, big word, lots of implications, and lots of different people viewing from different perspectives, right? Maybe you're a first responder that's dealing with some level of addiction, tobacco or alcohol, or, maybe you're outside and maybe you're dealing with a drug addiction. But I mean, you can be addicted to all kinds of things. You can be addicted to work, right? Or working out, physical fitness. Yeah. There's not that work-life balance.
I wish I was addicted to physical fitness.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah.
But I mean, even at that's an unhealthy, when it becomes obsessive and too much.
Yep.
Or drug addiction, which is plaguing our country. Opioid addiction is terrible. So I think it's important to define what addiction is so that we can understand why we get it.
I got a great definition. This is, and it's not a medical school definition. You'd find it in a dictionary or a medical handbook, but the definition I like is behavior that you do when you know you're causing harm and you can't stop doing it. It's like you want to do something and you know you shouldn't, but you do it anyway. That is the definition, my Dr. Axene definition
personal,
of addiction.
I got you. Yeah.
And
but I think there's some addictions that could maybe start, like working out, for example. It might start off as a healthy thing.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, so some addictions are really healthy. It's a shame that we would call it an addiction. It's like, for the last year, I haven't missed a workout.
Right.
It's been great.
Yeah,
I feel so much.
That's called consistency.
No, yes, right.
Yeah.
And I feel good about that. So now, when I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, it's just a way of doing things. And if I miss a workout, I think I'd be pretty bummed.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's addiction necessarily, but I'll tell you what though, it feels good.
Yeah.
It's like when I was doing the cold plunge. Yeah. I felt good.
Well,
and so I wanted to do it again.
Release of chemicals, yeah.
And that dopamine system we're going to talk about today, it's called the mesolimbic system.
Okay.
It's really the underpinnings of addiction. That's how we form addictions. But it's also really important for human function, where when we hunt for something and we receive it and it brings us pleasure, we want to repeat that system and get that pleasure again.
Sure. Right.
It's like you like a kind of a food, or orgasm for sex.
Right.
These are really good things,
right?
But they can become bad.
Now, is it true? So, with like heroin, for example, or drugs. Not that I've ever tried heroin, but I have heard that it doesn't take much to get that super euphoric feeling that heroin gives you. But then as you progress with any drug, pretty much you build up a tolerance to it, right? And then you have to take more and more and more. Is that true with all addictions?
No, it's not. That's a really good question. And I'm sorry I'm being rude here, but I want to pull up a picture here that I took. Okay. I was reading an article and I wanted to print off this graph here.
Okay.
If I can get it open.
Zoom
here.
in and find it. I hope you're not going to show me a graph because I'll need my glasses.
So what would you say is, I got a list here of the 20 most dangerous drugs.
Okay.
And not necessarily most addictive. The way that they organized this was personal harm by a drug and harm to other people.
Okay.
Because sometimes our addictions hurt other people.
Absolutely.
Sometimes our addictions hurt ourselves.
Yep.
There are some items on this list.
Both.
Right. There are some items on this list that cause very little harm to you and me. It's not healthy like vitamin C or anything, but most of the damage actually is injuries and death to other people based upon the side effects of the drug, which is usually something that changes your mental state or makes you,
little cray-cray?
Little behavior that is risky or whatever. So what do you think is the most dangerous of all drugs?
To others or to the person doing it? Or is this one category?
Both. This study here combined both. And so based on what we said, what do you think? Let's see if you can get 5 of the top 10.
These are drugs now, right? I would say fentanyl. I would think it would be on that list.
Heroin is number 2, so we'll give that to you.
Yeah, okay.
So you got 1.
Yeah, okay. Alcohol.
That's number 1.
Okay, yeah, that because it's legal And
Yeah.
I would think, So alcohol, you got heroin, I would say sex.
Not on.
I don't know if that's
not on here.
No? Okay.
But see, sex is, we talked about this
Oh, I
earlier.
guess these are drugs.
Orgasm. These are all drugs. But
That's
you
right,
know,
these are drugs.
But we'd have to define our terms. What is a drug?
Right.
In some ways, for me,
Getting the dopium.
my name is Erik Axene, and I am a workaholic.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I actually am.
Yes.
I'm not proud of that.
Sure.
Because it's hurt my family at times.
Sure.
And so, workaholism, like alcoholism, there's a substance with alcohol. With work, it's not so much a substance; it's more of an emotional need for achievement and for people pleasing or whatever it might be for you. The joy of making money or whatever it might be.
Success, accolades, all those kind of
position,
things. Yes,
fame,
power.
Right, you got it. So those may not be drugs, but not a substance, but maybe as if you define a drug, I think some of these things can be a drug.
Sure.
Sex you brought up.
Right.
Pornography, for example, there's no mystery that damages relationships.
Yep.
If you're a married man and you're
Absolutely.
engaging in pornography, you're hurting your marriage.
Yep.
And if you're doing it, you can't stop. What's the
That's
definition of an addiction?
Yeah.
It's an addiction. Sex
And
addictions
you can't
are
acknowledge
common.
that you're addicted. That's the
Yeah.
first sign of an addict. All right, so we got alcohol, heroin. I'd say nicotine.
Yeah, that's right. That's number six.
Tobacco.
Number
Yeah,
six.
okay, so
Tobacco, very
nicotine or
addictive.
tobacco. Alcohol, heroin, nicotine.
Give me one more.
Oh my goodness. Now why am I struggling to figure?
okay.
Oh, drugs. Well, like prescription pain meds, would that fall under?
I would say, yeah. Well, I mean,
thing?
that's a good question. That's more of a general term. I
like benzos, like Valium?
Benzos
Okay.
are number 10, actually.
Okay.
Number 11 is ketamine.
Oh, okay.
Special K.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
actually
yeah,
going to
yeah.
talk about that in our next podcast.
Sure.
We'll go into some of the
certainly.
marijuana is on here. You didn't mention cocaine, and methamphetamines, GHB,
GHB.
anabolic steroids, ecstasy, LSD. It's interesting. LSD, very, very small danger to the person, but
Huge danger to
other people.
PCP and LSD, they
Yeah.
talk about how those patients used to go.
I'm sorry, other way around. Yeah,
Super crazy.
very little harm to others, lots of harm to yourself. Whereas some of the other ones, the reverse. Alcohol, for example.
I guess it depends on where you're, because there's that case out of Florida where that guy ate that lady's face and was high on PCP.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, actually, and I can't wait to talk about this with the ketamine lecture. Did you know ketamine was derived from PCP?
That's what you were telling me this morning.
PCP. I mean, I've seen people rip the arm rails
Yes.
off the beds.
Yeah, super
I've heard
strong.
stories of them pulling the sink off the wall. I mean,
Break their arms. Police in custody trying to get them in cuffs, and they snap their arms and they just laugh.
and most of the people that I see come in naked for
Yeah,
PCP.
I used to tell stories all the time. You go to parties or whatever, and everybody'd always be, "Oh, tell me what's the funny story," And we had some couples that we used to hang out with, and I'd tell stories, and then finally one day, one of the ladies said, "Why is it every story that you have somebody's naked?" I'm like, "All the good stories. That's usually how it happens. Somebody's naked in their house."
naked.
So don't do drugs, kids. That's don't do drugs or alcohol to excess, because then you'll end up naked and.
Well, don't do drugs. I mean, that is kind of a common thing. We'll tell our kids,
Sure.
and the whole. If you're old enough to remember Nancy Reagan, just say no,
Just
right?
say no,
And
yeah.
the war on drugs with
The DARE campaign, yeah.
But what is it that makes the drugs, as most people define them, illicit drugs, so dangerous? It really what it is the addictive potential, because so much dopamine is being released. Right. I have a dear friend who is unfortunately addicted to cocaine and struggles in life, and that cocaine, he's described to me, it says it's like an orgasm times 100.
Oh wow.
It's just a ton of dopamine, a big dopamine surge. And again, the purpose of that mesolimbic system, like we said at the beginning, is you do something, a behavior, and when you get rewarded with a huge dopamine surge, you want to repeat that behavior. And sometimes we want to repeat that behavior, even though our prefrontal cortex is telling us,
Bad idea.
your marriage isn't going in the right direction. It's probably good to not look at this.
Yeah.
And you know it.
Yeah. Or take this or smoke
or
this
whatever.
whatever the case may be.
Your heart is not in a good spot. You're getting older. You just had a heart attack, and you do the cocaine anyway. or you know that
or energy drinks or caffeine.
Right.
You'd be addicted to any of those things.
You know your son is struggling in school and you need to be home more.
Yeah.
But you still work anyway. And those are the types of things that create addictions, create problems in life, our lives.
Yep.
You know, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here.
Okay, let's switch gears.
But, and I'm curious what you think about it, is that we all want to be more healthy. We all want to be more happy and content in life and enjoy life. We all want that. We talked about this in the last podcast, the Osabuka. We want to enjoy life and thrive.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest obstacles are to life change, whether you're trying to end an addiction or improve your health? What do you think the biggest barriers are? Because I got an answer. Sure.
Well, I would think it would be, well, first off, it's breaking that habit of addiction, right? So if it's, smoking a cigarette after you eat a meal, like breaking that habit of, I just ate dinner, oh man, a cigarette sure does sound good, So I think breaking the habit of actually doing whatever it is that you're addicted to would be, and then obviously, that internal, like you said, not getting that dopamine hit. It's hard. I can go and do this thing, whatever it is, and I can immediately feel good right now, feel better, right? I know I shouldn't do it, but it's like I can go eat a bag of chips. I know I shouldn't do that, but man, it's going to taste so good. That whole bag of chips is going to taste so good, and I'm going to be fat and happy on the couch afterwards, right? Yeah. Financial things, I would think, would probably be part of it. But is there one answer?
I do think there is. I love to find the common pathway. And that's why I wanted to talk really about this mesolimbic system. It does explain addiction, and the whole word addiction is what it is, but I think it has bigger implications. And I think and I do think that the key to those things that we want to do in our lives, to be more happy or to more content and thriving, and we don't want mental illness. We don't want to be depressed or feel depressed or be anxious.
And nobody wants to be addicted to drugs or alcohol.
Nobody wants those problems. No. So, and I really believe this too, and I talk about men's health, for example, or health really for anybody, is that we all are pretty smart and we all pretty much know the big health decisions. We know what the right things are to do, the healthy things and the non-healthy things. Right. There are some nuances there with new research and some of the things that we do that aren't so healthy, but they're not maybe a huge deal. Right.
Like tattoos, like we talked about in our podcast.
Yeah. So I guess what I believe is the biggest obstacle is the one word, change. It is so hard to change. It's really the change. People know that it's good exercise, but it's hard to make the change from what you're doing. Or people want to be thin and fit and have a healthy body that's going to last them a long time. But a lot of us, a huge percentage of our population, are walking around obese or super unhealthy for whatever reason, really poor cardiovascular fitness. Nobody wants to walk around obese. Right,
but it's hard to get up at 4:30 in the morning and go hit the gym.
It is.
It's that same old saying of it's simple, not easy.
Right.
To change these things is very simple. To get in shape is very simple, but it's not easy to do.
It's funny because when I think of simple, I think almost like simple and easy, I would say are synonyms. If you'd have just asked me.
But they're different.
They're totally different. That's a really good point.
The concept is simple. Just you want to get in shape, eat better, and work out. Well, that's a simple concept. Mm-hmm. The action of doing it, it's kind of like the thought and the action, right? Yep. The action of getting in shape, of saying no to the chips and eating healthy foods and going to the gym and being more active. That's not easy.
And you know what? I think that my most unhealthy behaviors are had when I am isolated and alone.
Yeah, we're our own. What's that old saying? Idle hands on the devil's playground. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, I think so.
You're by yourself. You're bored. Nobody's watching.
I have tried so many times. I've always had what the doctors call a little bit of a weight problem. No, really, I've always. I mean, when I played football in college, I was a big guy, I was in shape, I was muscular. Right?
Yeah, you're a big dude.
But I really think I had a lot of mesenteric fat.
I have what they have defined as a height problem.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No. But I think though that where was I going? We were talking.
You're talking about football, and when you were growing up, you were muscular as a college athlete. Yes, it was easy to stay in shape back then. As we get a little bit older, it's not so easy.
Get older, you start to get more fluffy.
Well, you can eat whatever you want when you're 20.
You can.
You can't do that when you're 50.
Oh, I got all the way up to 290 pounds, as you know.
Yep.
And I, at least with a big frame, I'm able to spread that around. And I honestly was still able to mountain bike like I like. And I was able to function and active. Yeah. But I was having some fat man problems. The belt was hurting my belly. And like I couldn't quite, bend over to like grab my socks or whatever. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is that I've tried the keto, the Whole30, Whole Steak. The carnivore. I mean, plant-based. I mean, and actually, well, there's a lot of stuff out there. Lots of eating. Or I hate to call them diets because what I've done is not diet. It's more of like a way of eating, I guess.
Lifestyle change.
Yeah, lifestyle change. So same thing with fitness, Like there's periods of my life when I'm in sports that was easy to work out, right?
Go to practice.
But when I stopped competing, it was harder to continue to engage in fitness. It was a lot easier to just relax. Right?
I think it's important as far as fitness, and I found this, is you need to set goals. Yeah. If you're somebody that's struggling with consistently working out, and all the fitness people will tell you that. Russell Krasniewski. I feel no problem saying his name because he's been on this podcast. Exactly. Yep. And I work with Russell, and he is an absolute freak of nature. The guy's amazing. Love him to death. But he has said one word. What was his word? Consistency. Right? Yep. And I think that to build consistency, if you set a goal for yourself, I want to run a 5K. Yeah. I want to do a mud run. I want to go hike with my spouse or my kid or whatever the thing is, right? Set a goal for yourself, right? And then that way you're kind of under a little bit of a time crunch and you know this thing is coming and you've signed up and you paid the money. Like you put something out there. I think that is a good way to motivate some people to be more healthy.
I'm glad you brought that up. It is a good way. It's interesting. When you set a goal, your chances of succeeding are about 10%. Right. But it's good.
It's better than zero.
Yeah. We talked about this on the podcast when Russell was on.
Yeah.
And to your point, setting a goal is good and it's important. But there's setting a goal, and then there's like setting a date increases your chances. Making a plan increases your chances. And it just kept the percentage kept going up. The percentage chance of success. The last stage, though, was a 95% success rate to life change. And you know what it was? Being accountable to somebody.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When you,
makes sense.
If you and I wanted to make a change, and this is how I've lost the 40 pounds that I've lost so
it's
far.
More than that, isn't it?
I kind of plateaued around 40. No, not to 60 yet. I know I got more to go, but the success that I've had so far over the last 8 or 9 months has really been, I believe, through this accountability, that 95% chance of being successful when you want to make a life change. Because I told Devin, friend of both of ours, that I wanted to make a life change, and this was my plan, and I asked him if he'd join me on it and hold me accountable, and he did. And he said, I want to lose weight too. You hold me accountable. So now we've set up a system where if I don't make weight one week, he gets punished. If he doesn't make weight, I get punished.
There you go.
And
what they do in the military.
Well, every week. Yeah. Well, yeah, you let
Remember
your belly
down. Eating the donut. Everybody else, what did he say? That you eat it or you enjoy it, and they're going to pay for it or whatever. Anyway, yeah.
So that accountability is really, to me, has been that glue that took me to a place that I've never been able to succeed on my own. Most addictions are most active in isolation.
Yep.
Whatever you
Makes
might be
sense.
addicted to, when you're in isolation and lonely, it's easier, and it's almost a vicious cycle for addiction.
Sure.
But you bring it out into the open because you want to make a change,
Yep.
and you make a plan, and you have somebody holding you accountable. It's a recipe for success.
There you go.
And so the whole mesolimbic pathway of dopamine for me in food is I know what kind of foods I really like, but I know they're not good for me, but I eat them anyway.
Right.
But that accountability gave me the I guess that force I
That
needed.
urge was stronger than the urge to,
And it's been successful for me anyway, in making a life change. And I really think whatever life change you want to make, by having that in a group or a community or a team, you can call it what you want, and that accountability, the vulnerability, the transparency, the authenticity of that, coupled with the fact that you want to make a change, it really gives you some extra oomph to actually make it happen.
Yep.
And now I've got all this inertia behind me.
Yep.
I don't want to go back.
No, right.
And
well, you see the results of doing it. You're actually getting thinner and feeling better.
You know, we didn't mean to talk about this, and we could talk about this in another podcast, but this is the first time in the history of America that more than half of Americans feel lonely. It jumped up after COVID to 60% of Americans feel lonely. And I think
These
you're right.
things.
I think you're right. So social media is not social.
No.
Social media.
And it's that's a podcast.
There are good things about
Sure.
social media.
There's pros and cons and everything.
Yeah.
There's good, but we talked about habits and addiction. We've talked about what is the Axene definition of addiction. We've talked about why our body gets addicted. So how do we break addiction? Like I've heard, and I don't know if it's true. I don't. Maybe you can educate me. I've heard that it takes about 30 days to create a new habit. So like if you want to start working out, if you consistently start doing that, in 30 days, that will now become kind of a new habit in your life. Like I want to go to bed earlier. So at whatever time, 9 o'clock, which that's no problem for me. At 9 o'clock, I can go to bed. 9 o'clock, I'm going to bed. Right? Is that true that it takes about... Okay, so that's factual.
There are different numbers you might hear.
And people are different, so
I like to think of it this way. You fill up a bucket with drops.
Yes. And then
But you empty it with a pour.
Yeah.
It's easy to empty that bucket. It's the same way with, I think, breaking an addiction or a habit. You can call it what you want.
Things,
It takes a long time to really break it. But I'll tell you what though, it can be done.
Yeah.
And some of these addictions, because these drugs are so powerful, I think it can, depending upon how predisposed you are to addiction, because some wirings of brain, there's a lot of neurodiversity out there.
Yeah.
And that's another, gosh, we could talk about that. Yeah. So I have ADHD. It's like I'm off the charts. I am the perfect wiring for an addict.
Okay.
The ADHD.
So you have what they would call an addictive personality?
I do.
I would bet I have too.
Yeah, and so if you have an addictive personality, you taking cocaine would be like oil on a fire.
Yeah, right.
Me doing methamphetamines, I'm going to be on the show Breaking Bad.
Let's be accountable to each other. Don't ever smoke meth or do cocaine.
No, really though, I think that there are certain personality styles.
100%.
This neurodiversity is a real deal. Right. And I think that some people are wired for an addictive personality, like you said.
To be more prone to easier to become addicted to something.
Alcoholics tend to be follow genetic lines.
Yep.
My great-grandfather was an alcoholic.
Yep.
And I remember not wanting to repeat the stories I had heard, which my mom told me, and that was one of the reasons why I chose not to drink. When my buddies were partying in high school, I was like, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, I don't
even. And I had a little brother watching me too. I wanted to do the right thing, and
there's that other person being accountable, kind of held you to standard.
On that podcast when I had Russell on, one of your colleagues, we talked about you said it too. I think, and they said what you said in a different way. It's like to know what your why is. Like have a why, like a goal.
Yeah.
The other Kathy, who was on the podcast with Russell and I, she brought that up, and both the way that she talked about it, we kind of fell off our chairs, so to speak, because it was like that was it. It's like you gotta have a why. I think that's a big part of change too. If you have that.
You have to have a motivator.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, people talk about motivation, but to start something, you have to have a why, a goal, a motivation to start it, right? If you have no motivation to start it, then why start it?
Yeah, no.
You know, you want to get in shape. Well, for what reason? Well, maybe it's because I want to feel better. I want to lose some weight. I want to look better, right? I mean, it might be a shallow goal, but you know what? If that's what I want to look good at the beach with my shirt off, right?
Yeah.
Well, if that's your goal, then good for you. You're doing something good for yourself, you know?
Have you read Atomic Habits?
I have not.
It's a good book, and it talks, the author, I can't remember his name, and I'm no benefit to mentioning the books to us, but I did learn something interesting there. It's a great book, and habit stacking is this concept where you make one life change, you turn it into a habit, a little thing, and then you can stack that habit and start. An example of this, I have to take a medication every day, and it's hard for me to remember, but it's not hard for me to remember to brush my teeth. And so I have the pill bottle by the toothbrush there.
Makes sense.
And so I remember that way. Same thing's true with working out. The first day I worked out, I made the decision to do it. I put my clothes out and set my alarm. So I just try to build that habit, set in the alarm, put my workout clothes out in the closet. And when I get up out of bed, I put the clothes on and I go to the gym. I just go to the gym.
Get in the truck. Well, you know, and a lot of times, like, people talk about eating better. You know, and they think like, oh, you know, I've got to totally change my diet. I eat terrible, and now I've got to be a vegan. Like, where's that written? No.
Yeah.
How about just cut out sugar? Just cut sugar out of your diet for right now, right?
Yeah.
Let's work on that for 30 days. And then say, okay, now I'm going to cut out whatever it is, carbs, or I'm going to reduce my carbs. And then once you start, which isn't really task stacking.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying as far as remembering to take things, but it's also building upon good habits. Like, okay, I took sugar out. Oh, I saw a difference. I lost 5 pounds last month.
Absolutely.
I'm going to try to lower my carb intake. Oh, I lost, you know. I think that's an important way to do it too, kind of building upon success.
I love it that you said that, because weight loss, for example, or eating more healthy, there are so many different philosophies out there. You know, from, you know, veganism, plant-based, kangatarianism. Have you heard of that? Kangatarians?
I haven't heard of that.
They only eat kangaroo meat.
Well, that would be a little bit hard to do here in the States.
No, you can buy kangaroo meat.
Oh, I'm sure.
You can buy kangaroo meat. Did you know you could buy it right down the road here? Yeah, they sell it.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you can buy yak meat.
Have you ever had kangaroo meat?
I never have.
I never have either.
No, I had rattlesnake with you. We had rattlesnake.
We did have rattlesnake. And you could really lose some weight eating rattlesnake because there ain't much meat on the
No, but there's a lot of different eating philosophies out there, right?
Yes.
But
diets,
But I'll tell you, here's one thing that we can all do right now. Try to buy most of your food in the periphery of the grocery store.
Yep.
Try to avoid buying foods in the middle, because the processed foods, the hyper palatable, high calorie dense foods are in the middle of the grocery store. Those are where the chemicals are.
Yep.
There can be chemicals in some of the foods outside too, but
that's where your fruits, vegetables, meats, all your natural foods are.
If you're eating, I think you said this, and this stuck with me. Eat the foods that your great grandparents knew about. Isn't that what you said? I thought you said that. I give you the credit for it.
Oh, well.
Yeah, you eat
got credit for something.
Eat the foods.
That's true, though.
That your great grandparents would have been familiar with.
Yep.
Right?
That's true.
Back at the turn of the century, you know, people are eating bananas and they're eating, you know,
dairy,
bread,
milk,
meats,
cheese.
those foods that we love.
Yes.
But you know what they weren't eating? They were not eating Lucky Charms. As much as I love those things, or Pop-Tarts and Cheez-Its and Cheetos. They are. These are good foods, and I'm not saying don't eat them.
Exactly. Nobody's saying cut out Lucky Charms forever and you can never eat another bowl. Nobody's saying that. It's all about balance.
And I think, but again, low-hanging fruit, if you're going to make a health decision, if you're going to change something with what you eat today, listen, there's a lot of literature out there. Throw that out the window because it's confusing right now. Just listen to this. Avoid processed foods, guys. 10,000 chemicals in the food system that are approved by the FDA that we know cause cancer. And they're all in the middle of the grocery store.
Yep.
Avoid those.
Yep.
Anyway, so much to talk about. Changing behavior is tough. We all want to be more healthy. The obstacle to that change can be really hard to overcome. Find a friend, make a team, find accountability, set a goal. All these things can be super helpful.
Yeah.
This is good.
That's good.
Be safe out there.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to EMS, the Erik and Matt Show.